never get a second chance at a first impression. Well, the Dallas Cowboys' first impression for the 2022 season was a 19-3 loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We're going to break it all down for you. The week that was, the week that is ahead for the Dallas Cowboys here on Special Edition. Alongside Isaiah Stanback, Barry Church, and Nate Newton, I'm Kyle Yeomans as we take a look back at this Tampa Bay game, and one that the Cowboys would like to forget for a number of reasons. But let's start with the first impression of what this Cowboys team looked like in the regular season. Isaiah, what were your first impressions?
Well, we found out that this is a defensive team. That's one thing that we found out right off the bat. The Dallas Cowboys are very good defensively. They held the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to 5 field goal attempts in the first 5 series. I think that's about all you can ask for when you're facing Tom Brady and the onslaught of Fournette and Mike Evans and all of the personnel that they have there. But what we also found out was that this offense isn't exactly where we would like for them to be. And Dak Prescott did not look the part. Kellen Moore didn't seem like he was ready for this matchup. And we have a receiving core that we have a lot of question marks around. So there are a lot of things that we have to work on. That was my first impression.
Yeah, my first impression is you're 100% right on that defensive side of the ball. I feel like they picked up right where they left off in the playoffs. They were able to take the ball away, and they gave this team as a whole an opportunity to win the game. Now, offensively, we got a lot of question marks. You talk about the wide receivers, offensive line. I don't think we're feeding Zeke enough, so I kind of feel like that falls on Kellen Moore. So we got a lot of question marks offensively, but defensively, I think we got an opportunity to have a pretty good defense this season.
My impression of this thing, fellas, is simply this way. There's a bunch of confusion that we didn't expect. We knew that the offensive line wouldn't be strong and play in line with one another. But what they did in the games and the twists and the stunt, they really had our offensive line out of sorts, and I didn't think they would play that bad.
Yeah, and really the struggles began really early on for the Cowboys. They went down, scored on the first drive of the game, had the field goal to put 3 points on the board. They did not score the rest of the time, and those struggles kind of were compounded with the Dak Prescott injury. As Dak Prescott goes down, he's expected to miss multiple weeks with a fracture in his right thumb on his throwing hand. I mean, you add this whole injury into what were the struggles offensively. How big of a loss is this for QB1 to go out when he went out, Isaiah?
It's huge. I mean, you never want to see your QB1 go out. Most teams don't have a viable number 2 option on their depth chart. So it's not something that you want to see, but it's something that Dallas Cowboys Nation should have prepared for. They had the opportunity, obviously, coming off his ankle injury of a couple years ago. They knew that they were still short at this position in terms of depth. So they didn't address it. They chose to go this route, and now they're finding themselves back in the same situation as they were before.
Without a doubt, this is a huge blow to this team as a whole because, like you said, QB1, you never want to lose him going into this game. And he was out because of that thumb injury. Now, it wasn't just, Dak Prescott that struggled in this entire game. I feel like the offensive line struggled with the speed of Tampa Bay. Receivers couldn't get any separation out there. And to me, as a whole, this team just looked like a team that sat its starters the entire preseason and came out extremely rusty out of the gates.
Who are your number 2 receiver? Who is your number 3 receiver? I mean, because they did not show up. We threw the ball to CeeDee Lamb, 11 times for only 2 catches. Our tight end did not show up. It seemed like a whole host of guys did not show up this game, and losing your quarterback just compounds it.
Yeah, now you got to get back on track for the offensive struggles with a new quarterback. And Dak Prescott, he's no stranger to missing games, at least as of late. Early in his career, from 2016 up to December of 2019, he was almost indestructible, had not missed a game, had not missed a start for the Cowboys. But this will be the 13th time in the last 3 seasons that he's missed a game. So, Isaiah, you dealt with injuries throughout your career. At some point, does durability become an issue if you're a quarterback like Dak Prescott?
It does become an issue as you continue to get older as a player in the NFL. This is the most physical league that you can imagine, and the guys are getting bigger, faster, stronger. But you have to ask yourself, when did these problems start presenting themselves? Well, when the offensive line started becoming an investment for the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I wouldn't say that he lacks durability. I mean, when you went out there, that ankle injury that he had a couple years ago, I mean, that was a gruesome tackle. I think anybody's ankle could have snapped in that situation. And then when you talk about that thumb injury, Isaiah, you know this best. It kind of comes with that quarterback position. When you're throwing the ball forward like that, you have a greater chance of hitting off of somebody's helmet, hitting off of somebody's forearm. So I wouldn't say he has a lack of durability. It's more just kind of bad breaks when it comes to these injuries.
Just unfortunate. And, of course, seeing your quarterback go out at any point in the season is an unfortunate break for the Cowboys. But, Isaiah, you mentioned it. You got to have a reliable backup to come in when you need it. Cooper Rush will be that backup for the Cowboys. And what kind of rare company could he join with a good game here in Week 2 against the Cincinnati Bengals?
Special Edition, presented by AT&T, is brought to you by Ford F-Series, the best-selling truck in Texas. Reliant, an NRG company. Blockchain.com, trusted by millions, trusted by America's team. And by AT&T, official sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys. This segment is brought to you by Salvation Army. Love Beyond.
That's the job of the backup. You got to go in. You got to make things click as if, four was in there. And we'll draw on that experience last year big time. Get my feet wet last year and getting out there tonight. We'll regroup as a team and a group on offense, and we'll be all right.
Cooper Rush knows the task at hand, presented by Texas Lotto as he enters his second start of his NFL career. He is 1-0 as he got a win against the Minnesota Vikings last year in a game where he threw for 325 yards, led a game-scoring drive late, and the Cowboys came out on top in that one, 20-16. So now he gets his second opportunity out of it, and this one's a little bit different. He doesn't have the weapons on the outside. A lot of concern up front on the offensive line. But, Nate, when you look at Cooper Rush and what he could bring to the table, how much confidence do you have in him the second time around?
This confidence is going to be all about what the team does around him. You want to protect him early in the game. You want to make sure you run the ball. You have a lot of play-action pass. You move him around. You give him some simple things to your tight ends, some easy outlets, and we'll just see how it rolls.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest here. It makes me a little bit nervous. If it was a one-off situation like last year in Minnesota, I think, Cooper Rush has a skill set to get the job done when we're talking about one game. But he's about to be in there for multiple games. So to me, once these opposing coaches get to dissect his film, really understand his strengths and weaknesses, I just don't believe that he has a skill set to get you W's back to back to back to back. Now, hopefully he can mainstay the ship, and like Nate said, the coaches put him in a great situation. But overall, this makes me nervous.
It's going to come down to Kellen Moore. It's going to come down to whether or not he's going to trust in his ability to run the ball. Is he going to be able to stay persistent in his pursuit to establish a run game? That's what it's going to come down to, because if you expect Cooper Rush to sit back there and throw the ball 40-plus times and find your way to a victory, this is not the Minnesota Vikings. We did do that last year. However, this is a Super Bowl caliber team. Matter of fact, the Bengals were in the Super Bowl last year, so these guys are a little bit better than what you faced last year.
And I don't want to rush to conclusions, but I would say if he does throw for 300-plus yards in this game, he'd be the sixth player all time to achieve that in his first two career starts. Kyler Murray, Kevin Kolb. You've also got Kirk Cousins, part of that list, Justin Herbert. Lots of really good names on that list. Cooper Rush would join that as well. But up front for the Cowboys, they've got those question marks that I alluded to a little bit earlier. Matt Farniok coming in and playing that left guard spot for the injured Connor McGovern. Did what he could, Isaiah, but ultimately, is there still question marks up there that Cooper Rush might have to be aware of?
Absolutely. I mean, these guys are strong in terms of their interior defensive line, the Cincinnati Bengals I'm speaking on. I don't think that they're a team that pressures a lot, so it just really comes down to being sound, being assignment savvy. But I would like to see Peters in there, even though I'm not sure the chances of that. But he's going to have to hold it down for at least a game. Yeah,
I'm with you on that one. I think, Farniok did a good job out there as far as his performance last week, but I don't believe he's one of your 5 best offensive linemen. And if Jason Peters is caught up to task as far as the playbook is concerned, I say you put him at guard, you leave Tyler Smith out there at tackle, and let this offensive line go to work.
He's just a battler. He's going to have to fight. He's going to have to be technique sound. He's going to have to know what to do. And that was the problem last week. A lot of guys hadn't played together during training camp, and it showed up. And Peters, I think he's a week or two away, in my opinion.
Yeah, and Barry, I know there's a guy that you've been keeping your eye on as well with Donovan Wilson, the safety, who came in, had an interception last week. He forced 5 turnovers in 2020, relatively little playing time last season. Can he get back to form even with J-Ron Kearse not in the fold?
Yeah, without a doubt, this is his opportunity to step up and fill the shoes. He's a hard-hitting safety with a nose for the football, but he's going to have big shoes to fill because Kearse, not only was he the quarterback of this defense, but he was also played multiple roles, safety, linebacker, played nickel out there. So I don't think it's going to be up to just Donovan Wilson. I think it's going to be the combination of Wilson, maybe McQuamu, and maybe Marquise Bell as well to fill the void that Kearse has left.
Luckily, they do have the safety over the top and Malik Hooker that they have a lot of confidence in and played well in week 1, even against Tampa Bay, and that high-powered offense, but it doesn't get much easier because Joe Burrow comes to AT&T Stadium this week. The reigning AFC champions. What's the secret formula to slow down Joe Burrow and company? Dan Quinn is searching for that when we come back with more Special Edition.
This segment was brought to you by Salvation Army. Love Beyond. This segment is brought to you by Ford F-Series, the best-selling truck in Texas.
Can you speak to some of the challenge you have this week coming up? Bengals lost a tough one yesterday. Burrow's got some targets to throw to, and then they got that big one in Mixon.
Yep, should be two pretty pissed off teams, so it should make for some fun as we're going through it.
Dan Quinn with a challenge of facing Joe Burrow coming up this week. And after 1 week of the NFL regular season, only 2 teams out of the 32 are all alone in last place of their division. It's the Dallas Cowboys and it's the Cincinnati Bengals. The only 2 divisions where the rest of their opponents in the division won their week 1 games, and the Cowboys and the Bengals lost theirs. So one team is going to stay into last place going into week 3. Cowboys trying to avoid that, and they're going to have to do so against Joe Burrow, who had 5 turnovers last week. Isaiah, if you can force Joe Burrow into turnovers, you can have some success. How does Dallas replicate what Pittsburgh did to him last week?
Confusion. Last week, Pittsburgh put a lot of pressure on Joe Burrow. And they also, while putting pressure on, they did it with their front 4. And behind that, these guys, they disguise a lot of their coverages. They played a lot of Tampa 2 coverage. They did a lot of trap corners. They used 3 safety sets. There's a lot of confusion, which caused Joe Burrow to hold the ball a lot longer than he wanted to. Allow those guys to get pressure. Cincinnati gave up 7 sacks. He had 4 interceptions, really had 5 interceptions. 1 was a holding call. And he had 5 total turnovers, should have been 6, and he threw the ball for 53 times. If you can force him to have to throw the ball that often, you're going to have plenty of opportunities.
Without a doubt. Look, Joe Burrow is a dog. And even though he had 5 turnovers in that game, he still gave his team an opportunity to win the game in overtime. So to me, this comes down to Dallas's front 7, like you said. If they're able to confuse Joe Burrow, if they're able to make sure that he has an uncomfortable pocket the entire game, you can talk him into overthrowing some passes. And you know what they say, tips and overthrows.
Got to get those.
We got to get those takeaways from Joe Burrow. If not, it's going to be a long afternoon for the Dallas Cowboys defense.
And looking at that film against the Steelers, like you guys said, they had pressure on him, but they was taking away that first option a lot of times, making them hold the ball. And as you hold the ball, you tend to make bad throws. And their safeties and corners were jumping routes all over the place.
Joe Burrow 3-1 all time after 2+ interception games. So he knows how to rebound. He's also going to hand the football off to Joe Mixon and company as well. The fact that Joe Mixon was able to put under 100 yards of rushing, 100 yards from scrimmage last week was a feat because he ran the ball 27 times. They're going to give him the rock, Isaiah. How does Dallas slow him down?
They have to be gap savvy. Last week, Dallas gave up some yards on the ground to Leonard Fournette because these guys were jumping around blocks. You need your defensive lineman, your interior defensive lineman to be able to 2-gap things, be able to force these guys back into their backfield and not be moving around, because what happens is you create those open seams. Fournette took full advantage of it, and you best believe as they try to get things established from their last week's loss, they're going to give Mixon the ball again.
Yeah, without a doubt. Your defensive line is going to have to be huge in this game, not only getting penetration versus the run, but they're going to have to keep that line off of your second level. Let Micah Parsons, let Vander Esch be sideline to sideline. I have to worry about these big offensive linemen out there, but they're going to have to do that because if they can't stop the run, like I said earlier, it's going to be a long afternoon for Dallas.
It might be a long afternoon for the secondary as well because that man right there, Jamar Chase, is coming to the town. And you've got an opportunity here without T. Higgins maybe in the fold. He's questionable going into the week, but they still have weapons with Chase and Tyler Boyd. Nate, when you look at these wide receivers, where do they compare to some of the teams that Dallas has faced over these last couple of years?
They're right up there. I mean, this is a top 2, top 3 deal here with Burrows coming with Chase from out of school like that. They know how to throw this guy the ball. They know how to get open for one another. So T. Higgins, this guy here, they're special.
Yeah, and even if Higgins doesn't play, you still have a Michael Thomas that comes in there. And then there's a tight end by the name of Hayden Hurst, who happens to be a complete dog as well. So you factor a Hayden Hurst in there with an excused Jaron Kearse. Now what is your opportunity to be able to stop these guys in the passing game?
So we know that the offense is high-powered, but is the defense underrated, Barry? When you look at the tape of the way that the Bengals get after guys up front, and then, of course, a couple guys, one of which very familiar with Chido Awuzie at the second level, are they underrated when you come up against some of these other top NFL defenses?
Without question, I would say they're underrated. I mean, they got playmakers and hard workers at each level. When you talk about the defensive line, you got Trey Hendricks, that has a high motor out there. Second level, you got the tackling machine in Logan Wilson. And then you got a secondary who's led by arguably one of the best safeties in the National Football League in Jesse Bates. So this is a talented defense that can make things hard for Cooper Rush if they don't play their cards right.
Got to play your cards right, and of course they're going to try and do that all day long. But who has the most pressure on them to get the job done? Is it Ezekiel Elliott, or who else could have a ton of pressure on them moving into week 2 of the NFL season when we come back with more Special Edition?
This segment was brought to you by Ford F-Series, the best-selling truck in Texas.
I mean, like you said, last year we've been to a game, without Dak, and Coop he got out there, he commanded that offense. We got to win. So I mean, we just gotta, take that same approach. Coop, he's been here for a long time, and we have a lot of trust and faith in him, and we just got to go out there and figure out to get a win.
Ezekiel Elliott with a vote of confidence for Cooper Rush as he takes over at quarterback this week against the Cincinnati Bengals, and we welcome you back in to Special Edition. That soundbite brought to you by Reliant, and the energy needs to be brought for this Cowboys team this week if they're going to get a win against the reigning AFC champions. Gentlemen, who has the most pressure on them heading into this matchup? Because without Dak Prescott on the fold, somebody has to step up. Isaiah, it could be a position group, it could be a player, it could be a coach. Who has pressure on them?
It has to be the guy that you guys just finished listening to, and that's going to be Mr. Ezekiel Elliott, number 21. Ride the 21 pony, y'all, because you only rode him 10 times last week, and he averaged 5 yards per rush. That needs to be at least double from what that was last week. This guy is effective not only in the ground game, he's healthy, he's also a contributor and a big asset on the passing game, whether that be him getting out in receptions or whether that be him blocking it up. We love to see TP. He's explosive, he's lightning quick, but he doesn't do a good job in the passing game. So we need to see 21 more. Ride him well, ride him often.
Without a doubt, you definitely got to ride 21 out there. I mean, this is a guy that brings the energy to this offense, and it's pretty much the locomotion behind it. But to me, I'm going with Kellen Moore. He has got to step up. I mean, look, he did an amazing job tailor-fitting a game plan to Cooper Rush last year in Minnesota. Did a great job of having the run game, set up the play-action pass, and Cooper Rush was able to execute that game plan flawlessly. But to me right now, this is not just one game. This is multiple games that Dak Prescott's going to miss. So, Kellen Moore, you have got to make sure you fit this game plan exactly to Cooper Rush's strengths, because if you're able to do that and this offense can still be somewhat productive, I think you can escape this run, this 4-game stretch, if it's just 4 games, with a 500 record, and that'll be great in time for Dak Prescott to come back and take over the realm. But Kellen Moore, you have got to make sure you tailor-fit an offense specifically for Cooper Rush. He can get the job done. It's time to go, Mr. Moore.
There are plenty of people doubting what Kellen Moore can do, but he's going to need some help up front, Nate. I mean, you played offensive line at the highest level. I mean, this offensive line needs to have some kind of continuity and confidence moving into week 2.
And what they have to do is they have to finish. They have to finish on the run blocks. They have to finish on the pass blocks. Where they got caught up last week was these guys are not used to playing together. They had a lot of twists, a lot of games, a lot of stunts. And when they did that right then, when they incorporated the linebackers and brought in TP, Tony Pollard, to try to block this, it was just a bad unit. If our offensive line, along with Zeke and along with Kellen Moore game planning this thing right, this offensive line should come out okay.
That continuity from week 1 to week 2 is probably going to be the biggest step up for this Cowboys offensive line. Can it be the same for the receiving core, as CeeDee Lamb and company have a lot of pressure on them? Can they come through against the Cincinnati Bengals in week 2?
Special Edition, presented by AT&T, was brought to you by Ford F-Series, the best-selling truck in Texas. Miller Lite, the only beer of the Dallas Cowboys. And by AT&T, official sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys.
Wrapping up Special Edition from the Star in Frisco as the Cowboys get ready to take on the Cincinnati Bengals in week 2 of the NFL season. Isaiah, we've got to have a key to victory. How do the Cowboys come out with a win?
Keep Joe Mixon and this offense under 100 yards on the ground. That means that Joe Burrow has to throw it 50 or more times for interceptions.
Without a doubt, we have got to make sure Joe Burrow is feeling uncomfortable back there. And I think the young line, I think he's hungry out there. He's going to make life hard for Joe Burrow. Let's go out there and sack him and get a victory with this.
25 or more touches for the running backs. They got to do this right here. We got to have some type of running game that's over 120 yards, and we got to be a better pass blocker. The key to this is to finish.
And what is your key to the prediction? Who you got this week?
It's going to be hard this week, fellas, but I still have us by 1.
Okay.
Oh, we need. Yes.
Cowboys by 1. Nate Newton, Barry Church, Isaiah Stanback. I'm Kyle Yeomans. That does it. Catch the game Sunday afternoon on CBS. Cowboys, Bengals, Week 2.